and as I unrolled each one, G had each and every single question right. I could see a black shadowy figure out the corner of my eye on my left. Before I could respond, she looked deep in my eyes in a calm voice and said, "Are you ready to die tonight, Monica?" Hello and welcome to a new episode of Real Spooky Stories, the place where I tell your real spooky stories. If you'd like to share your story, or you have a topic you want me to share, or any stories you want to share and you want me to read, give me a little email on realspooky-storiesPodcast@gmail.com, or you can click any of the social media links below, or get in touch on the Reddit or whatever you want, or just comment on whatever you're listening on. I don't mind. But you have joined us this week for a little psychic medium episode. I have tried to do this before and I did struggle to find stories. I did struggle again today to find stories, so you just have to bear with me. But I also have a listener story today as well, which is good, and it's about a psychic medium, which is kind of what prompted me to want to do this episode. I did want to do it anyway, but I did struggle to find stories, but you know. So I think I will do the stories I've got from Reddit, obviously all linked below as always. Then I think I'll do the listener story after that, and then I'll do the creepypasta. So if you want to hear the listener story, make sure you have a little listen all the way till after the stories. The stories aren't that long, to be honest, actually, so this might not even be a long episode, but it's fine. We want to hear them anyway. I just want to know, before we get into stories, like, what do you think about psychics? Because I don't know, I feel like some say, like, I got one last June, I think, like, as in, like, nearly 2 years ago, like, June 2023, so that was the first one I got, and I was just like, oh, I don't really know what to think, and, like, as I was there, I was thinking, oh, this is really good, and it's accurate and stuff, but then when I left, I was like, is it? And some things were just, like, I don't know, it's just hard, like, to do. And then I got one recently, a few weeks back, and literally that was just so bad. There was one thing he said, which I'm not going to say, but that was the one, he done it over the phone as well, so I don't really understand how they can get a reading from you from over the phone. So, like, he said one thing that was, like, quite accurate, but everything else was kind of like, he was saying, like, I'm seeing a white car. Have you got a white, you drive, don't you? Have you changed your car recently? And I said, no, I've never changed my car, actually. Like, you know what I mean? And then he was going, I'm seeing, you've been thinking about changing it. I can see a white car. And I was like, no, I don't really know the white car. And then he was just randomly going, oh, I'm getting the name John. And I was like, I don't know any Johns. And then later on, he was like, I'm getting the name William or Billy. And I was just like, I don't know any of that with that name. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like the names like that. Like, and he was going on, like, he was saying, oh, you and your sister, and you didn't speak to one of your nans as much as the other one. And you know what I mean? Like, it's just, and then he was going, have you ever lived in a house with this number in the name? And I said, yeah. And then he was like, and it's at the end of a street, isn't it? And I said, no. And he was going, I said, no, it's actually very in the middle of the street. And he was going, no, but it's towards one end. And I said, it's really not. It's directly in the middle row it's in the middle of the row. And he was like, oh, well, I'm just picturing, you know, just, and then, like, he was saying things, I don't know, it was just, he was saying things at the start, and then later on, he was, like, saying them again, but based on what I'd replied earlier on, if you know what I mean. It's like as if he came up with it. I don't know, it's just a hard one. But then, obviously, somebody from, I know I'm just going off on a tangent, but somebody from work recommended me to this guy. And as soon as he walked into her house, he said something, and he was telling her, like, really specific things about her family and stuff, which that's obviously, I was like, oh, that's really good. So that's why I went with him. And yeah, it just wasn't, you know, I don't know, it might just be give and take with people. It might just be different for different people. But anyway, let's get into the first story now. This is from Creepy Encounters. It is by the user Pastel Florist. It is titled Creepy Psychic Woman Outside My Home. I'm on a mobile and using fake names. So this happened end of summer 2021 and I was reminded because of Facebook memories. A little context: from ages 16-19, I was being abused by my ex and his mother Monica. I lived with them because I was kicked out and she had power of attorney over me. Her name wasn't Monica, it was a super unique name I haven't seen anyone else have before. It was a Friday night in the middle of a neighbourhood filled with bars and clubs, so me and my fiancé wanted to go out. I got all dolled up and my fiancé went to the bar about 30 minutes before me so we could grab some food from a pizza place near the bar. Once I finished getting dressed, I hopped out of my apartment and started heading to the bar that was like 3 blocks away. I noticed a homeless woman outside my apartment, but I shrugged it off. There were always homeless people in my neighbourhood since it was downtown. As I walked past her, I heard her turn and start walking behind me. It definitely creeped me out because I assumed she was just heading my way or was going to ask me for a cigarette or money. But no, what happened sent a shiver down my spine. Monica, the woman called to me in a raspy smoker's voice. I froze. I hadn't heard that name in years. I was terrified. I took a deep breath, assuming she had confused me with someone, and it's a big coincidence, so I turned back and smiled and said, "Oh, sorry ma'am, I'm not Monica, I'm Lilac. I hope you find Monica though, have a good night," and turned to walk away. "No, Monica, I know who you are," she said as she grabbed my shoulder and turned towards her again. I was frozen in fear at this point and finally got a good look at her up close. She was probably in her early 60s, brown hair with grown out grey roots. She had on multiple layers of coats and ripped scrub pants. But what was most noticeable was her eyes. They were dark and her pupils were so large they almost engulfed the dark brown iris. Before I could respond, she looked deep in my eyes in a calm voice and said, "Are you ready to die tonight, Monica?" I instantly went into fight or flight mode and smacked her hand off my shoulder and turned to run to the bar, my hands in my purse and my pepper spray if she tried to follow. She didn't. Instead, she just laughed and laughed. I could hear her laugh echo in my ears along with her question as I ran to the bar. I found my fiancé and just broke down sobbing. He calmed me down and got me a drink, then walked me home a couple of hours later to make sure she wasn't there. The next morning, I heard from a neighbour that the sports bar across the street from the bar I went to had a fatal shooting out front about 2 hours after I left. A man shot and killed 1 person and hurt 2 more. He was arrested 6 months later and was connected to another bar shooting a month prior, where only 1 person was injured. The shooting seemed completely random. I never saw that woman again and moved a few months later. That's strange. Someone's commented, "Super creepy, do you have any theories?" The OP has commented, "Probably high as a kite. Knew someone with that name, was confused. Doubt it because I have a lot of piercings and at the time 3 different colours in my hair, so I look pretty unique. Or high as a kite and trying to freak me out as some weird joke and just so happens to call me that name. Theory I accepted as true based on her laughing when I left. Or was high and about to threaten or mug me and stab me. Neighbourhood was bad when it came to violence and crimes." You really think this woman was high, don't you? So just to clarify, someone's commented saying the name was your ex's mother's name, which was and she said, yeah, my ex's mother had a really unique name which I've never heard anyone have before, and she called me that name. That is weird. It's a bit, it does sound like a coincidence, but I don't know how. She was saying Monica or whatever, you were ready to die tonight? That's just a bit, do you know something we don't? You know what I mean? This story is from the subreddit The Truth Is Here. It is by the user Ayla from the Andromeda. It is titled, "My Auntie is a Psychic Medium." My auntie told me she could see dead people as a warning when I first moved in with her. I already knew that she'd had a bunch of miscarriages in the past, but didn't know how many until I moved in. She'd been pregnant 8 times before she finally had her first baby, but she named all of her children that she lost. I remember one day she told me my cousins were going to come over and spend the night. Now, I've always sort of believed in the supernatural because I come from islands where a lot of supernatural shit goes down, myths, legends, etc. But this was the first time I ever experienced anything of the sort. We stay in a 2-storey unit with the bedrooms and bathrooms upstairs and the kitchen, living room and front door downstairs. After about 6 p.m, I start to hear footsteps upstairs and my auntie tells me that they're here. We were home alone that night, just me, my auntie and her baby. She went upstairs to use the bathroom, which is right next to my bedroom, and I heard her start to yell saying, "No boys allowed in this room, only the girls can sleep here." She yells a bit more and then comes back downstairs, and as soon as she's off the staircase, I just hear my bedroom door slam shut so loudly the wall shook. I couldn't see them, but I had this weird feeling like I was with all my baby cousins. You know that feeling you get when you're at a family reunion or something? It was kind of like that. They didn't do much though, just run around upstairs and turn the TV off a few times. They were gone by sunrise. It was a weird experience, but now I fully believe that my auntie can see ghosts. Aw, that's quite sad. I feel like she's... obviously you can hear the run around and stuff and you get the feel that you're at a family reunion, but Is that just because she said you're going to have a sleepover with your cousins or something? And I feel a bit like, it's not like she was saying, oh, your cousins are going to be here tonight, are you going to be okay? You know what I mean? It's like she's just saying, you're going to have a sleepover with your cousins tonight. Or like it's just a normal thing for that. It's just strange. Like, come over and spend the night. Like, where were they other than, apart from already there? You know what I mean? Oh, I feel bad on her there. Like, I don't know. I wonder how old her little son is as well. And if he can, like, see them and stuff. Oh. This story is from the subreddit Creepy Encounters. It is by the user sham_pain_renegade. It is titled, I always believe that some people genuinely are gifted with empathetic, intuitive, or psychic capabilities, myself and my family included. However, this guy did something I still have yet to understand how he did this, and I can't explain it at all. To start it off, the backstory is during a time when I was going through a huge transition in my life. I try to keep details about myself private, but it's necessary to include this information. I'm a recovering addict, and this event took place in the facility I put myself in about 6 years ago. It was a massive place that was co-ed, and we had a gated outdoor courtyard. This gate prevented people from leaving or outside people coming in unauthorised. The thing about this place is that, being what it is, everything and everyone that comes in is searched. Of course, people find a way to still smuggle things in, but due to the nature of the story, I don't really understand what could have been used to do this, or for that matter, why anyone would go through that much trouble to begin with, just to randomly fuck with people. So there was a new guy that came in. I cannot for the life of me remember his name, as he was only there for a few days. Sadly, this is a common occurrence, as people are free to discharge at any time, but usually that means they left to resume their addictions. I also, for whatever reason, cannot even remember a single identifying thing about him beyond that he was a white guy. I'm just going to call him G. It doesn't stand for anything, I'm just pulling it out of my ass. Just like in many places that have a large amount of people, cliques and groups are formed, and I had a group of friends that I hung out with. There were about a dozen of us. We were outside in the courtyard, and we invited G to sit with us. We're in the middle of the courtyard, there's a whole bunch of other people outside from the facility, but we're quite far away from where the fences were located, or where anyone from the outside could interact with us. Also, phones are taken away, and you can get kicked out for having one, so no one would be stupid enough to pull one out when everyone plus staff are outside in broad daylight. So we invited G to sit with us, and a few people were making chit-chat with him. Typical getting to know someone questions. My thing is drawing, and I had a sketch pad and pencils and pens. I was working on a drawing. He commented that I was really talented, and he said that he has a talent too, but it's a weird one. Now we're all intrigued. He asked me for a piece of paper and something to write with, and told me to take a piece of paper and something to write with. He instructed that both of us were to rip the paper into 5 very small strips. The table we were sitting at had 4 bolted in-place benches, and he sat across from me but asked everyone else not to sit on the seat on the sides, but they were allowed to stand directly behind the seats. No one was to stand behind either of us. He told me that he was going to ask me 5 questions, and I was to write the response individually on the piece of paper. I was to block what I was writing with my hand to write my response as small as can be. I would write each answer to the questions individually on the 5 tiny strips of paper. After I was done writing the answer, I would roll the paper up into a small tube and then place it in front of me in a row. The questions were extremely random, like this. 1. How old was I when I got my first kiss, as well as his first and last name? 2. The make, model and year of my first car. 3. The name of the street I lived on when I was 12. 4. My maternal grandmother's first and last maiden name. 5. The name of my favourite pet, what type of animal it was, and its colour/colours. So can I just say, I wouldn't even know that about myself. All them questions, I'd be like, I don't know. After he announced what each question was, we would simultaneously write our answers down on the strips of paper. When this was done, we started at the first question and exchanged our strips of rolled up paper, and as I unrolled each one, G had each and every single question right. As these strips of paper were read out and rolled, we were beyond the freak the fuck out. Like, there's super impressive street magicians, extremely talented people who have mastered sleight of hand, but this was something that still to this day gives me goosebumps. These were not easy answered questions like pick a number, was this your card? After me, he proceeded to do the same thing with 2 more of the people in my group. I previously added all of the information at the beginning of this to emphasise that this was not a place where he could look into stuff online. We were all complete strangers to all of us. There was no one else that there was, I don't know, able to see what we wrote on those strips and somehow fed them the answers. I'm a rational person. No matter how we tried to figure out someone could do this, there was zero logical explanation. I have still no idea how he did it, and it's a thing that haunts me. I just have to realise that there are things out there that are probably beyond my comprehension. I probably will never figure this one out. G was only at our facility for a day or 2, and then just left one night. No explanation, just walked out. No one knew enough about him to be able to find out anything about him. I have no information about him before or after this event, but it remains one of the most baffling things I've ever experienced. And that's the end. Someone's put, I don't know what happened, but the questions 2 and 5, which is the one about the make and model of the first car and the favourite pet or whatever, is the security questions. So they said, even if he got it wrong and you read out the right answers, you need to watch your security, mate. And yeah, that's true. I know, because I'd be filling these in like, are you trying to hack me right now? You know what I mean? Sorry if the audio sounds a bit weird because I'm just doing it at a different time. This story is from the subreddit Paranormal Encounters. It is by the user NoWeakness7222. It is titled Psychic Medium Story. I, 20 female, am a generational psychic medium, trained with a very experienced psychic medium for several years before starting my own practice. I wanted to share a story that happened a few years ago and was my first big encounter. In 2021, the ex that I was dating at the time was super interested in what I practice. She liked to bring it up in conversation with people she knew frequently. I was okay with this because I'm not ashamed of my practice. This was all with the first month of us dating, and we were at her grandmother's house. Granted, this was the first time I was meeting this woman. And her grandma told me that my ex told her about my gifts, and she was curious if there were any presents in her house because she had weird occurrences on a regular basis. I told her that I could take a walk around, and if I sensed anything, we could do a session, since I always carry my stuff with me in my car. Long story short, I did feel a strong presence in the house, so we decided to do a session. My preferred method of communication with the spiritual realm is dowsing rods. I'm clairvoyant, so having a conduit for communication allows me better clarity in communicating. We opened the session with basic questions such as, is there a spirit in this home that's willing to speak to us? The answer was yes. We moved on to more specific questions such as, were you an original resident of this home? It answered yes. We asked for a name and it gave us Robert, and the name of the road that the house was on. We will call this Smith Road because the original name is very specific. As we spoke with Robert Smith, the ex and the grandma were asking their share of questions while I tuned in to see if anything was to be heard through my clairaudience. It was discovered that the spirit was a stillborn child of the original homeowners who remained in the house to grow up with his siblings. He shared that he was stuck at the house because there was nothing to remember him by, so he stays. The grandmother asked if there was anything that could be done to help pass him over. And out of nowhere, I blurted the word bluebells, like the flower. This older woman, whom I was meeting for the very first time, looks at me with the most shocked expression before she just starts sobbing. I was quite confused because I didn't know the woman well enough to know of any significance, but when I looked at my ex, she was just as confused as me. After the grandmother collects herself, she quietly says, I dug them up, and stands from her chair before going to the kitchen of the house. I close the session with the spirit before I allow myself to get more drained, and after I'd say 10 minutes, the grandmother returns. She hands me an old local newspaper from decades of past, and the front article is titled The Bluebells of Smith Road, and was basically a story about a man who came from a different state because his mother told him the story of a farmer's wife who planted bluebells at their now grandmother's house and how they spread through the entirety of the ditch along the road. My guess is that the original owner of the house planted her stillborn son beneath the bluebells, and the spirit felt trapped within the house once the only reminder of him was gone. I told my ex's grandmother that she should plant some bluebells somewhere on the property. She did and didn't have any encounters since. Oh, that's quite sad. I feel sad on this little guy saying there's nothing to remember him by, so he stays. You would think that would be the opposite. And like, there's nothing to remember him by, so he goes. Like on Coco, is it? And like when they forget them, they go. Oh, that was a cute one actually. But also, why do you just carry your stuff in your car with you all the time? I mean, like, it's probably just in your car, isn't it? But it's just a bit weird to just carry it with you. Like, surely your partner was like, oh, my grandmother's got a weird thing. Can you bring your stuff? Like, you know what I mean? Okay, so we've got a listener story now. She wants to stay anonymous, so I won't say what her name is or where the place was or anything like that. But it's about a psychic medium. I'm just going to read it. She's told me it like a story, so I'm just going to read it how she's wrote it. But it is a spooky one. So let's have a listen, and thank you for sending it in. Well, it was the first time I ever went to a psychic witch tarot read thingy. It was in the woman's house. She was like a full-on witch with all the talismans and cauldron and everything. Anyway, I went with 3 other people, and she did the readings in the kitchen, so the rest of us waited in the living room for our turn, and I went last. When I went into the kitchen, I started getting a really bad headache out of nowhere. When she was doing the reading, I was sat at her table so that I was facing the door back into the living room. The stove was on my left and the window to her garden was on my right. I could see a black shadowy figure out the corner of my eye on my left. When I turned to look directly at it, I couldn't see anything, but the headache became blinding. When I turned away, the headache lessened, but the figure came back. When I turned all the way around to look at the window instead, the headache reduced a lot, and when I left the room after the reading, it disappeared completely. I was really overwhelmed during the reading. In fact, I can't even remember anything that she told me, because I was so preoccupied with the shadowy figure. I don't think the woman had any idea there was anything there. She thought I was upset because it was my first ever reading, and I was just overwhelmed. I didn't really know what to say to her, so I didn't tell her. None of the other people I went with saw it either, but apparently the person who lived in the house before her was murdered, so it could have been him. Or she summoned a demon or something with a witchy ritual. Not a very good story, but it was definitely spooky. No, that was a good story. That was spooky. Like, I wondered if she knew that thing was there as well. Or if you... I don't know, because if you would have brought it up to her, she could have been like, oh yeah, I can see that. But, like, she might not have been able to. But then she might not have wanted to bring it up to you in case... If it's like a black figure, I guess that wasn't a good thing, maybe. But also... if she brought it up to you and be like, oh, by the way, there's a black figure, you might just, like, run out the house. So, it just sounds spooky anyway, like. Also, when you go to readings and stuff, when I went to one once and she had all, like, incense and stuff lit, and by the time I left, I literally felt sick. Like, I felt physically sick. Like, I felt like I was going to be sick. And I don't know if it was, like, the incense or, like, the vibe or, like, what went on the reading or whatever, but... I don't know, I wonder what that man was. And I wondered if anyone else who's went to her has had that experience with the man as well. Might be worth a little Google. But thank you for sending in your listener story. If anybody wants to send theirs in as well, email me on realspookystoriespodcast@gmail.com, or you can just message me on Instagram or Reddit or any of the social media. It's all linked below. And thank you for sending that in. And now we will go on to the Creepypasta story. Of course, we do a Creepypasta at the end of every episode. Right, so this one is actually a 4-parter, but I'm only going to read part 1. If you want to read the other parts, they're linked below. Well, the main one's linked below. It's got the other parts linked on it if you want to read them, but I'm just going to read part 1. I might read part 2, depending on how long it is. We'll see. So it is from the subreddit Creepypasta. It has since been deleted, so it doesn't tell me who the user is. But it is literally just titled The Medium Part 1. The thing about being a spirit medium is, it's horseshit. I should know. Those crummy late-night infomercials with Madame Cleo connecting middle-aged women with their dead aunts. Yeah, that's what I do. Few people know this, but Madame's other name is Corvette Mama, and Christina Garcia, and Janet Snyder. This can be found on Wikipedia. What you won't find is that she also has a degree in marriage counselling. I majored in theatre design. Don't bother looking me up though. I'm not nearly as successful as those other television con men and women you see channeling some long dead house cat for a weepy preteen. Look at it this way. If I had Madame Cleo's money, I throw mine away. Who's even heard of Victor Voltaire? My real name is Gary Pimmel. Some theatre savvy comes in hand when you're hosting your own open house seance, especially with all the smart home technology out there. Public access channel aside, most of my income starts off as palm reading. A pair of tipsy 20-year-old girls come giggling in through the beaded door, and you know they're just looking for a laugh and experience. No repeat business to be found there. Take the cash, tell them to avoid bald men in yellow convertibles, and shove them out the door. But when a woman sits down, clutching her purse with both her hands to her chest, eyelashes stuck together with dried tears, now you're in business. She'll say, interrupting, I'll say something vague like, I know, you're looking for something, you're desperate. Nodding feverishly, she'll pull a handkerchief from her sleeve with those dried, leathery old people hands. Cracked from overuse, calloused at the forefinger and thumb, all of this just wear and tear from repetitive motion over the years. Observing this, I'll say, how long have you been knitting? What do the women in your knitting circle think? Then the face of astonishment. Then the weeping. She'll spill the beans of her abusive husband, her long-lost daughter, her porcelain angel collection. I had this one ancient chick describe in full detail her love affair with TV celebrity Brent Spiner, the guy that played Data in Star Trek. One observation, one question. This is the power of theatre design. In the entertainment business, we call this the willing suspension of disbelief. When you sit down to watch Hamilton, you're fully aware that the people you're watching aren't reanimated corpses of the historical figures dropping fresh rhymes in the middle of a revolutionary war. You give up your rights to doubt and scrutiny as soon as you take your seat. The set design, the lighting, the ambience, all this designed to help the suspension of disbelief all along. Make it easier to buy in. When someone walks into my parlour to finally say goodbye to Uncle So-and-so, or flip the bird to their suicided brother, they've already decided to let doubt take a back seat. With enough heat-resistant gel lighting enough forethought in your incense selection, you can stuff doubt right into the trunk. One trick is keep all your candles under a vent. Keep it warm when they first come in. Then when something supernatural is supposed to happen, slide your thumb across your smartphone to drop the AC. Cue atmospheric shift. The candles will go out. Old ladies fucking hate the cold. This leaves them vulnerable, confused. Same strategy the police used during an interrogation. Another trick is buy a beat up circular table. Then buy a thin slab of sheet metal and have it cut down to size. Glue that down on top of the table and cover the whole thing with wood pattern laminate, that really shitty, thin kind. You can buy the stuff wholesale. Run a wire from the hidden metal plate all the way down a table leg into an outlet. Wire in a foot pedal. This way, in the middle of a seance, when everyone's holding hands, their elbows on the table, everyone gets a shiny shock when you put your foot down. Not enough to do any damage, the laminate will provide just enough insulation to allow everyone a jittery tingling sensation. Make sure that none of the sheet metal is exposed though, otherwise it's manslaughter. Cue otherworldly presence. This old lady, the next day, she tells her friends about me. All those knitters. She'll tell them I changed her life. I saved her. By the end of the week, their whole circle is here, asking to speak with lost husbands, missing children, hearing how all these loved ones die. It's no wonder I'm terrified of getting into a car. Nowadays, I'm constantly checking my testicles for cancer. These old ladies forking over that retirement cash, disability cash, pension cash, these kinds of sources are far and in between. So I run a second business. Give anyone enough closure, enough emotional relief, and they'll feel obligated to give you something sentimental, something homemade. These old ladies will swing back sometime with award-winning gems, homemade scarves, handcrafted jewellery. For them it's a hobby. For me, it's a too-booming Etsy account filled with artisan goods. 2 weeks back, I sold some woman's home-brewed perfume, £300 a pop. A quarter of my yearly income is made this way. Look, I don't need your judgment here, I really don't. Am I a liar? Sure, who isn't? People slide me $20 and I keep them entertained for half an hour. They slip me $100 and leave me feeling like death isn't the end. Psychology validation has always been a high commodity. Stepping out my bearded doorway, they're taking away an improved quality of life. Have you seen what credentialed therapists charge? Are you kidding me? I'm providing a public service for peanuts. I'm the patron fucking saint of counsellors. But as far as the real deal goes, ghosts, spirit worlds, whatever, like I said, horseshit. I needed to be horseshit. I spent my childhood being numbed by Catholicism. Early morning mass, stand, kneel, bow, read, listen, repent. I couldn't take an eternity of that shit. If I die in my sleep tonight and wake up tomorrow and an everlasting anything, I'm going to be sorely disappointed. That's why I'm writing this. Over the last few days, there have been occurrences I can't explain. And it all started with a phone call. More to come. Ooh, that was part 1. I think I will read part 2 because I'm intrigued. And I feel like you are too. It's quite long. It's about the same size. I'll read it because I'm intrigued. As I was reading, I was thinking like, yeah, I know that psychics do these things and whatever, but I was thinking why there's a rose creepypasta story about how they aren't actually a psychic. You know what I mean? Okay, here's part 2. The key to being a spirit medium, the key for any con man, is to know when you're almost worn out of your welcome. I mean, I'm good, real good, but eventually people wise up and walk away. Or worse, run out of money. For instance, every once in a while, I'll get invited to someone's home to hold a seance party. Mrs. What's-Her-Face is a long-time client. She came to me when her father died of liver failure. She came to me when she thought her daughter was pregnant. She came to me when Trump was voted into office, asking about omens of doom, whatever the fuck that means. About 6 months, this woman was in and out of my parlour, coming in to hear me say things like, your aura is bruised, the spirit world is communicating, but are you failing to listen? Again, all of this horseshit. So I get a phone call, the one I was telling you about, the phone call where everything turns to shit. This chick, What's-Her-Face, calls and says, my husband is out of state for a conference. Is it possible to book you for a small gathering at my place? I immediately know this is the beginning of the end of our customer-provider relationship. The best thing what to do here is charge triple, even quadruple, what I usually charge in advance. In the early 90s, McDonald's was really blowing up. A drive-thru ended up on every major street corner. The big golden arches spaced out about 20 miles along every interstate. The big wigs in Home Office know that maintaining quality food with this many chains would be nearly impossible, not to mention how difficult it is to provide a dining experience for people eating inside, and speed for those getting it to go. They approach this problem with a psychological solution. Hard, cheap plastic seats. Sit and eat for more than 5 minutes and your ass is so sore you can't wait to leave. In every McDonald's, high quantities of bright yellows and reds, colours denoting urgency. Everything about the layout screaming, go, go, go. Google hostile architecture. Google aggressive interior design. The trick to getting more money, the trick to not pissing off scores of customers, is to get them in and out of their own violation before they have time to complain. High quantity customer experiences, not high quality. When working away from my parlour in some hostess's house, with all his sceptical friends drinking white wine and judging each other's nails, I know my presentation will be shit. Without the theatre design, without the diffusion of saffron oil, without a track of chanting monks playing at a low volume, my whole shtick is nearly impossible to pull off. Suddenly, under the lighting in this chick's dining room, my mysterious goatee looks glued on. With everyone around me at the table dressed in Gap, my second-hand robes look dingy. I've got a little more eyeliner on than one side than the other. Don't look too close because, yes, I'm wearing silver-tinted contacts. Before the seance even begins, I've already lost them. This is why I charge so much for home visits, the big bang marking the end of steady income. Our hostess says something like, "Guys, I promise Victor here is the real thing," but there's a hint of doubt in her voice. Lighting a cigarette, I say, "So, are we going to do this?" One of these Gucci soccer mums looks over appalled and says, "Tobacco is really bad for your health." Yeah, with the inflection and everything. I'm blowing smoke. I'm like, "I've read your palm, sweetheart. Between you and me, I'm not the one who should be worried about cancer." Oh God, that was a bit brutal, wasn't it? Halfway through the seance, and people are rolling their eyes. What's her face is bright pink and drunk, the bottle of Pinot Grigio sitting a few inches from her glass. I stand up and bow, saying, "Ladies, the mysteries of the spirit dimension must wait. I need to piss." I make my way to the bathroom, up polished wood stairs. A few minutes later, I'm wiping my hands on a monogrammed towel when I hear something singing. A low, croaking kind of voice singing what sounds like Russian. Cocking my head to the side, I'm walking down the hall towards a partially shut door, lamplight from inside spilling out from underneath. Behind me, from downstairs, what's her face is apologising to her friends between hiccups. I press my ear against the door to catch the tune being sung. Something familiar, but unnameable. The singing stops. My hand flat on the door, I push it open. This is where I first meet the glass-eyed woman, sitting on the edge of a twin bed, wrinkled and veiny hands resting shakily on her lap. She's ancient, decrepit, barefoot in a pale nightgown. I can make out the shape of her tits, sunk low, sinking heavy against her stomach. Where she's not balding, her hair is grey and white and thin, her lower lip stretched up halfway to her nose. She's rubbing her gums together, staring down the patterned carpet. Then there's me, standing there in the doorway, entirely uncomfortable with that monogrammed towel in hand. "Sorry, I didn't know. I just heard you singing, so I..." She turns to look at me, and her eyes look off. Not crooked or anything, just wrong. The way prosthetic eyes, no matter how good they are, always look too glossy and unfocused. "Well, I'm just gonna head back down." Weak, shambling, she starts to push her feet, mumbling that now incredibly fucking creepy Russian song. Coming at me, she smiles, and her mouth is the colour of raw beets. Me, I'm just paralysed with discomfort. Google, fight, flight or freeze. A foot away from me, she puts her ice-cold, skeleton-like hands on either side of my face, and for a terrifying moment, I think she's trying to kiss me. Instead, smiling, she says, "You don't see. Not really. No." And then, nodding, "But you will. Then you will know." And she takes my hand and gives it an affectionate squeeze, shambling away, back towards the bed. She's singing again. I step out quietly, shutting the door behind me, dropping the towel there on the hallway floor. I take a minute to compose myself. What the fuck was that? Back downstairs, it's dead silent around that dining room table. Quiet as death, no one making eye contact. What's her face's mascara is running. I clap my hands together and say something like, "Well, thank you all for a wonderful dinner, but alas, the witching hour is at hand. I'm off. Please, no one get up. I know the way." Fishing for keys in my inner robe, halfway towards my car, someone says, "Hey, asshole." Turning around, there's our gracious host holding my jacket. Forget something? Right, she hands me the jacket and I smile, saying thanks. She's so pissed, she's radiating heat. "Hey, your mother, does she speak Russian by chance?" Arms folded, she says, "My mother died when I was 13. You told me her presence was what got me through grad school." Of course, shit, forgot about that one. So, the lady upstairs who... I think you should know that I intend on calling my lawyer tomorrow. I've never been so mortified in my entire life. I had this dinner party planned for months, you dipshit. And putting both hands on her forehead, she says, "I knew I shouldn't have just got a magician. I hope you know, and a fucking amazing defence attorney, because my husband..." And in that moment, it happened for the first time. I felt a knot in my chest, and momentarily, I can't breathe. My teeth are vibrating the way they do during hyperventilation. In front of me, what's-her-face was still speaking, but instead of words, a stream of clear water pours out from between her lips, splattering down onto the sidewalk between us. Her face is blue. Suddenly, her hair, her clothes, it's all soaked. Ounces of carefully placed makeup run down her face in the sheets of colour on her top. I watch as her eyes roll steadily upwards until only the bottom edge of each iris can be seen. Then it all stopped. Dry as anything, arms crossed, she says, "Are you listening to me, asshole?" What? Turning on her Prada flat without looking back, she says, "Expect a call from my lawyer." That night, I didn't sleep. The next morning, there in the Weekend Express, Upper East soccer mum jumps from Riverbank Bridge. More to come. Ooh, that was part 2. So there's 2 more parts. This guy's a bit of a douchebag, isn't he? Like, he's just like, I don't know, he's just a bit of a douchebag. The way he keeps saying, Google this, Google that. Like, he's just cocky. And he keeps saying, I'm good, real good. Like, shut up. You know what I mean? I'm not reading the other 2 parts. You can read them if you want. They are linked on these stories. It's the last story, the Creepypasta one. So if you want to read the other 2 parts, you can have a little read. But I guess he really is a medium after all. And he didn't think it. And he's now going to get a call from this girl's lawyer. So I suppose that's what he deserves, really. Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. The creepy stories, aren't they? Just all the stories I was reading are just creepy, aren't they? But I don't know, this felt different. Like a different vibe. Also, if you don't follow me on TikTok, I do the stories, what I already do on this, so I just cut them down and I'll post, like, not all of the stories that I read today, but, like, a few of them. And as I'm going to start doing, like, a movie trivia, so I think I'm going to do, like, a different movie per week. So I'll just do, like, movie trivia, so, like, Hocus Pocus, whatever. I'm going to do Hocus Pocus first. If you want to hear some trivia and facts and, like, not spoilers, but like bloopers and stuff about films, if you want to recommend any films for me to do, like I want to do like horror films and Halloween films and stuff like that, so if there's any you want to recommend that I can do, because the trivia on all films and like things that you might not have known, then give me a little follow on TikTok, and you can also comment on this if you want to let me know that. But thank you so much for listening to this episode. Next week's episode is going to be a Creepypasta special. I think I've been saying this for weeks and I'm finally getting around to doing it. So next week's going to be a Creepypasta special with some of the most popular Creepypastas on there, including Smile Dog, which is my fave. But thanks so much for listening to this episode. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please give a little like, comment and subscribe or a review if you're enjoying it, and it will send my podcast out to more people. Recommend to your friends, whatever. But I will see you next week at 12 p.m. on Sunday. Goodbye.